All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Joy. I'm a guest engagement specialist at the Great Lakes Science Center, and I have a very special guest with me, someone who is very well accomplished in the realm of computer and information science. So I'm going to let my very special guest, Dr. Grady, she's over here, introduce herself. All right. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, thank you so much, Joy. That's a great introduction. So hi, everyone. As she said, I'm Dr. Grady here, and I'm happy to be here today. So a little bit about myself. So I am an HBCU grad 3 times, and what that means or stands for is Historically Black College and University. So I have a Bachelor of Computer Science, Master's of Computer Science, Master's of Information Science, and also a PhD in Computer Science. One fun note to remember about me is I was the first woman to get a PhD in computer science from North Carolina A&T State University. And that's something I'm very proud of. I've been loving computers since I could probably walk and talk. I'm an only child. And so in my home, the computer was like a sibling, like a friend. I used to just get on it and just spend all my time, hours and hours and hours of time, learning, growing, and developing. And so it's a natural process that I got here. So I'm happy to be with you all today. And fun fact also about me too, I love traveling, cooking, and I enjoy nature.
Oh, that's really cool. So you spent a lot of time with computers as a kid. So what made you decide this is something that I want to do for my career?
Well, my dad is a programmer, so watching him, and my mom actually worked at a big tech company. So we had the technology in the home. And my dad was a living role model example, as well as my mother, because they were both working in the field. I think that I got here actually through the start of video games. So I was a big gamer growing up, even though I said I'm an only child. My parents come from large families, and I have many, many first cousins. And so it was a competition. I was the only girl for a little while there that was local. And let's just say I beat them every time. So that was kind of fun for me. And so my love of video games, by the way, it was Super Mario Brothers and also Sonic the Hedgehog. And also I had an Atari at one point in time. Don't worry about that. I know that's probably beyond the scope of you young people. But long story short, I had all the games at that time. And so when computers, kids are a thing now, but back in that time, it was they were very, very, and they're still very expensive, but they were very expensive and not a lot of people had them in their home. And I was blessed to do that. So from the video console, then moved to the computer. Once I started gaming on the computer, I got used to using the command prompt and the DOS and understanding the different directories. And I got really into it. And not to date myself, but at that time, the internet wasn't a thing. And so we had something called dial-up. And so once dial-up came around, then all of that video game, it got me to the computer. Then from there, I started developing websites, and it just took off from there. What made me want to become a professor and teacher and help other people is I love to help other people develop their passions and their skill sets, because sometimes people don't have a role model in their home. You know, they don't have someone working in that field. I was blessed to have my parents work in that field, but sometimes you need somebody else to be there to encourage and cultivate that passion within you. And so it's very fulfilling to me to work with my students, where I get to instill in them some of my passions of computer science and watch them develop and grow and hopefully be way better than I am and go beyond where I've been. And so that's what keeps me here. It makes me happy, smile, and also doing fun research keeps me active in the community and engaged.
All right. So you mentioned you're a professor. So what sort of classes do you teach? What's your typical day on the job look like?
Well, the typical day now is different, but pre-COVID-19, typical day looks like, lots of meetings, lots of lesson planning, lots of especially now trying to make sure that I'm keeping the virtual class engaging. A lot of people try to take what they were doing in the classroom and then bring it online, and sometimes looking at a computer screen constantly is not that much fun. So I like to incorporate different activities where, beyond the breakout rooms where people can work together and still have a fun experience. Some of the classes that I teach are my research area, which happens to be artificial intelligence. I'm excited about that. I'll be teaching that for the first time this fall. Also, I'm not in a computer science department. I'm in an information science department. So I get to bring a lot of my expertise in computer science to the information science realm. So I also teach a course called Information Systems and Organizations, where students learn how to help organizations develop their content, their information, and how to retrieve those things. And also information systems projects where they get some project management experience to take a project from the very start to the end. And so I enjoy all of them because all of them have different focal points where my students get specific skill sets from the classes. And beyond a typical day, research, I talked about that a little bit. My research is in artificial intelligence. And so what I did for my PhD is I looked at social media to determine if I could determine the authorship of a tweet. And I used machine learning to do that. Now my latest research project is I'm looking to see or apply machine learning to autonomous vehicles. And if you're not sure what an autonomous vehicle is, that is a self-driving car. So that's the wave in the future. And so with that work, we're going to look to see if we can detect faults in real time so that we can hopefully save lives and stop a lot of accidents from happening. So I'm excited about that. So I get to do my research on a daily basis too, and bring my students into the research. So a lot of them are excited to gain new technical skill sets and learn about the field. Many of them like fast cars and self-driving cars and things like that. And so it's exciting.
So you've talked a lot about machine learning. So for someone who may not be familiar with what machine learning is, can you go into what sort of machine learning is?
Yeah, you probably see it every day. It's more like recognizing patterns. So a lot of times now, if you have a assistive technology like a Google Home or Alexa, it starts to recognize your voice. It should be able to determine the distinction between you or your parents. Machine learning is behind the scenes helping it to recognize. By you keep talking to it, it starts to recognize your voice a lot more. And you probably see machine learning in a lot of things that you're not even aware of. Where, for instance, if you are on social media, hopefully you're at least 13 years old, if you are. But if you are, a lot of times you'll notice if you go to a website and then go to somewhere else, a different website, you'll see an ad pop up based on what you were looking at before. And so there's all these things behind the scenes that are trying to gather your preferences. And they do that by pattern recognition, recognizing what has happened over time.
So you've mentioned a lot of things that you really, really love about your job. So do you have a favorite part of your job?
Let's see. I actually enjoy all of it because even the meetings are great because I get to have input in the conversations within my department and the university level. So those are fun because that's where you really make a lot of the changes that happen. Also, I enjoy teaching because, again, helping students to learn from me. That makes me feel really good because number one, when you teach something or can teach someone something, it shows you have a knowledge on it. And like I mentioned before, just seeing them grow that passion for what I'm sharing with them, that's really fulfilling. And then the research, I just love it all. The research is cool because it keeps me motivated because technology is ever changing. If I'm not sure how old you all are, but if you think from even 5 years ago or 10 years ago, things are like vastly different than how they are today. So I think being in this field keeps me on my toes. And I think that's something that I really, really, really enjoy.
So you mentioned that technology is changing. Using all of your research, is there anywhere that you see technology going? Do you have any predictions as to where computers might be in the near future?
I don't want to say where computers are going to be in the future because it's a little scary thought. But the cool thing is we're behind all of the technology. So whatever technology is developed, I think the main issue that I see that needs to happen is some regulation, some public policy to help regulate how technology is used and by who, and just put some parameters around the management of it. So that's what I think needs to happen more of to make sure that technologies are not biased, that they're being used in the right way for hopefully good and not evil. So I think I'm more concerned about that than the technology that is going to be developed, if that makes sense.
Fair enough. So way back in the beginning, you mentioned that you were the first female to get your PhD in computer science from North Carolina A&T. So what is it like working in a male-dominated field and being the first female to get that level of recognition at your school?
You know what? It's very interesting. So, there are some things that, different genders or cultural diversity. It's something different that everybody brings to the table. So I think for me, it was fine because I'm so used to it. But you know, there are some caveats sometimes, things that happen where as a woman I may have needed to assert myself more to let them know that, you know, hey, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z on this particular project. No, I will not be the secretary here. If you would like to take notes, you can take notes. But for me, that's fine because I don't mind asserting myself and, you know, letting someone know what my capabilities are. But it can be challenging at times because people do have a perception of who they think you are or what your skill sets may be. So I think sometimes that can be a little challenging. But to overcome that, I just keep a positive attitude and just always show up to the table and let the work speak for itself.
Excellent advice. So is there any other advice that you would give to a young person who thinks that they might want to make computer information science their career?
The advice I would give is stick with it. If it's something that you don't get right off the bat, don't worry about that. There are some people that naturally have certain gifts or in certain areas. And so if this is not your gift where you just naturally get it, don't get frustrated. It's more about the time and effort that you put into something. You can always learn how to get better at something. But I think many times math and science kind of intimidate people where they say, well, I'm just not good at that. Sometimes you need to think about if you're really not good at it, or maybe the teaching style that the instructor is using, maybe that's not the best style for you. Maybe you have to ask for help or additional tutoring, or maybe you have to spend a little bit more time to get it. But the good news is once you get it, you've got it. So I just want to encourage you not to give up if it's something that initially you're not really, really good at. Just stick with it, do the work, and it will work out for you. But I know a lot of times it's easy to quit something when you just don't get it. But if it's something you really want to do, just stick with it.
That is fantastic advice for computer and information science and science in general. Yeah. So, Dr. Grady, thank you so much for joining us. I hope that you out there learned so much about the world of computer and information science. And, you know, who knows? Maybe you just might want to make this your career as well. So thank you so much for joining us today. And until next time, everybody, stay curious.